I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Leahy.
Present.
Mr. Larry.
Here.
Miss Martin.
Here.
Mr. McHugh.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Miss Doherty.
Here.
Miss Fattacante.
Here.
7 present.
Okay. The first item under special orders of business is a public hearing on interdistrict choice, the school choice program, to consider whether to accept up to 5 non-resident students for the 2007-2008 school year under the state school choice program for the deaf and hard of hearing program for preschool through grade 4, youngsters at the McAuliffe School, up to 5 non-resident students for deaf and hard of hearing program for grade 5 through grade 8, youngsters at the Robinson School, up to 5 non-resident students for the therapeutic day program for grades 9 through 12. At the LeBlanc School, acceptance of students will be based on space availability and the ability to provide special education services as dictated by students' individualized education plans and determined by the Director of Special Education. We will open up the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this matter? Anybody wishing to speak in favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Madam Superintendent, do you have an explanation here?
Yes. Earlier in the school year, we talked about that we have a couple of very specialized special education programs that are attractive to districts in the surrounding area because they're very high quality and they offer potentially a more effective and better, cost-effective and better alternative for placements of youngsters with special needs. And so we've identified 3 of those programs. The program for deaf and hard of hearing youngsters at the McAuliffe School and at the Robinson School. It's a continuum of services from elementary through to middle school, as well as the therapeutic day program at the LeBlanc School, serving high school age students. So our plan, if the school committee accepts it, is to offer up to 5 placements in each of those programs. It's up to, and it would be depending on whether we're confident that space is available, and that there is a very good match between the youngsters' individual education plan and the services that we can make available in the program. This will, in some cases, assist our program to make sure that there's a critical mass of youngsters whose needs we can meet here, and it will also be a revenue-generating option for us because there will be tuition paid by the sending school district. So the school committee has, for a number of years, voted not to participate at all in the school choice program. We were advised by the Department of Education that if we want to bring in youngsters on a tuition basis into very specific programs, that we can do that under the state school choice program, and as long as we are very clear in the vote about limiting the parameters of it, then we will be legally entitled to do that.
Ms. Fattacante.
I have a question, Your Honor, through you to the superintendent. Madam Superintendent, in the therapeutic day program, grades 9 through 12, are there any students in an outplacement program, out-of-district program?
I'm sorry. All of this, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Are any of our students who in an out-of-district program?
At this point, all of the students who, is your question, have we brought back the students that we could?
Right, because yes. I know that we had students in an out-of-district placement. I know we had, so I didn't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. I hope that that's what we were not doing.
Absolutely.
So did we bring back all of the students in our out-of-district placement?
Yes.
Okay.
We've brought back all of the students whose needs matched what we could offer at the new program at the LeBlanc that we started, what was it, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? So we have brought back all of the students that we could bring back from other out-of-district placements so that we would not be, as you say, robbing Peter to pay Paul.
How many students still remain in the out-of-district placement?
I'd have to get that information
Okay.
for you. I don't have it off the top of my...
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rona.
Mr. McHugh?
Just briefly, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent. So have we had legal counsel look at this language just to ensure, because, the only thing I'm concerned about is if somebody was to challenge that and said, you're a school choice, I want to send my child to your district, I wouldn't want to get caught, with this, any type of challenge at that point. If
Right.
I understand what we're trying to do here, but
Right.
I just want to make sure we've covered all those bases.
We have not had, we've not had the city solicitor's office look at this. This is the language we were advised to put by the Department of Education when we consulted with the Department of Education on this issue.
If we were challenged, who would decide, be the person that would decide if a child from Chelmsford decided that now that we took this vote applies and we denied? Who would hear that challenge? Would it be Department of Education, or would it be
Well,
attorneys?
my understanding is that we could be the Lowell Public Schools would be the determiners of whether it is a match between combination of space available, educational plan of the youngster, and the program.
No, and I understand that for this, but I guess, I wasn't...
Right.
My question is, if somebody said, well, no, you're a school choice, even though this language exists, and they still want to push the issue, and you denied it, where would they, where
They would
that
go to the Department of Education.
So the Department of Ed then would make a decision based on this language that to
That's
say-
my understanding.
Okay, I'm just a little concerned that we make sure we touched all the bases, that we didn't open up a Pandora's box here.
Right.
That we're trying to accomplish something that's
Right.
good for us, but there's I don't want to leave any loopholes to allow other
Right.
individuals to push, and the next thing you know, we have a number of people that would like to come to our system. Then we have an issue with space and classroom sizes and all those type of things.
Right. We explained to the Department of Education what we were trying to accomplish, that we do not want to, that the school committee has not wanted to, nor do we want to, open up enrollment in any other program. That we want it very narrowly to very specific, 3 very specific special education programs and they indicated this was the way to do that, is to specify in the vote the limitations.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Leary?
Just not to quote, well, through you, Mayor, to Madam Superintendent, you said that your understanding, are you 100% sure that that's their decision to render? We're not going to have to be going through this with the city solicitor to litigate this at some point, if there is a challenge to it?
I don't believe we have anything in writing from the Department of Education on this. If you would prefer that we get something in writing from the Department of Education, we could attempt to do that.
If we could, I would feel comfortable that just in case there is something, and not to say that you're missing something, but if there is, I think that would be,
Yeah.
I don't know if we should, how do we do it appropriately?
Would you want to vote it pending receipt of confirmation from the Department of Education?
I would support that, yes. Or we can just wait, I mean, and do it next meeting.
But I think there's a time limit in which you have to, there's a time frame in which you have to vote whether or not you're participating in any way in the school choice.
And
I
that's
think
in the
it's-
month of May?
I think it's the month of,
May I, please, sorry to interrupt, but we have a budget hearing.
right.
Couldn't we take this as an action item as part of that discussion? Like, we could hold
Sure.
the meeting for that to address this one issue at one of the budget meetings. I think we have one next Monday.
Yes.
That's still, I think we're still within I think it's in the month of May, and I think we've still got time. I wouldn't be opposed to.
Be happy to-
I'd feel more comfortable holding until we had.
Be happy to do that. I think it's important to have that.
I agree. Thank you.
Verification.
Something.
Okay, so we've opened and closed the public hearing. There is a motion to delay this matter for further consideration until the beginning of the May 7th meeting of the school committee. I believe that's the next scheduled meeting. So moved by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? So we'll take up this matter at the beginning of the May 7th meeting. Next special order of business is introduction, of the McAuliffe School Principal, Jason DiCarlo. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Martin. It is our practice to introduce new principals in the Lowell Public Schools, and I took this as an opportunity to invite the retiring principal of the McAuliffe Elementary School, as well as the incoming principal, the current assistant principal at the McAuliffe, Jason DiCarlo. And I wonder if I could just make a few comments, first about Pamela Simpkins' service. Pamela started her career in education back in the early 70s, but by 1981 she came crossed the line from Billerica to Lowell, and and came to Lowell as the coordinator of early childhood education, served in that capacity until 1989, when she became principal at the Laura Lee School, which at the time was the home for our early childhood special needs program. And she served several years in that before being asked to assume the role of principal at the Varnum School in what was expected at that time to be the last year of the Varnum School's existence. So that was the 92-93 school year. And then in 1993, she was the leader of the school, opening the McAuliffe, the Krista McAuliffe Elementary School, one of Lowell's newest buildings in the very early stages of the school building program. I think committee members who've had opportunity to hear Pamela or read what Pamela has often written in her parent newsletters, or meet with Pamela in subcommittee meetings, knows that she is a caring educator who knows special education, knows children, knows people very well, and has always treated them with enormous dignity and respect. And I thought it appropriate to acknowledge Pamela as she takes that big step to retirement. So, Pamela, I wonder if you...
Carla, thank you for your kind words. I think you know I have mixed feelings about this, and I just feel that I've been very blessed to be able to be a principal and administrator in Lowell. I've been incredibly fortunate to work with very inspiring superintendents, very hardworking and totally committed central office staff, and an incredible staff at the schools I've worked at. I think all of the staffs I've had, all of the people I've worked with epitomize what it is to be a caring, committed urban educator. And it's a sacred job, I believe, and it's a hard, incredibly hard job. And I've been just blessed to work with people who do it so well. And I'm also blessed in leaving my baby, my McAuliffe School at this point, to an educator I know is going to bring the building further up and further along. And I think it feels good to do this now at this time. I'm very, very delighted that it's Jason DiCarlo who is replacing me. So thank you for your words.
Now, as Pamela has said, and there are many McAuliffe staff members here, I think paying their, wishing Pamela well and encouraging Jason. Very delighted to have Jason being named principal. Jason began his teaching career here in Lowell several years after Pamela, in the mid-90s, as a third and fourth grade teacher at the McAvenue School. He then served as a building administrator for summer school, and he had the opportunity during the Cardinal O'Connell's last year as an elementary school to serve as the teaching principal in an apprentice role that we had in the 2002-2003 school year. He earned his spurs during that year under the careful guidance of several administrators, including Leanne Connors and Lorraine Burgoyne, and then moved to the assistant principalship at the McAuliffe School. He's done a fantastic job there. He's terrific with the students, terrific with the staff, and he was a very, very strong recommendation of the search panel that interviewed candidates. Saw him as really absolutely the perfect match for the next stage in the life of the McAuliffe Elementary School. So I'm delighted to present Jason DiCarlo.
Thank you, Dr. Baer. Thank you, members of the school committee. I, too, like Pam, have some mixed feelings. I am certainly very excited about the opportunity to be the next leader at the McAuliffe. However, I'm a little sad because a great friend, colleague, and mentor is moving on, and she's been great to work with, and I've learned a great deal from her. So I am excited. Thank you to some of my staff members that are here to support me. Very excited and ready to go.
Ms. Simpkins, we thank you for your many years of fine service here in the system, and Mr. DiCarlo, thanks for your not so many years of fine service, but we certainly welcome you and be supportive of you in your new role. Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the minutes of the April 18th meeting. Motion to approve by Mr. Leahy. Mr. Leahy, you have an issue
I had
on
a
the minutes?
correction.
Yes.
On page 4, I wasn't sure if I had asked, I wasn't sure if I asked for a motion to look into extended time subcommittee to look into the possibility of running a so-called summer school during the year. Did I phrase that as a motion, or did I just say we should look
Well,
into
there
it?
was no second, so. it is-
Okay, so-
There wasn't a second, so
All
this
right, is
can't
that
be a
something I can
motion.
make now, or let it, bring it in later? Okay. All right, this time,
Which item is it?
page 4, at the right above reports of the superintendent.
Okay.
So,
Can I make
sure.
a motion to suspend the rules for Mr. Leahy to bring in a motion this time, please?
Okay.
So moved by Ms. Fattacante, second by Mr. Leary. Any objection to suspending the rules for purposes of hearing this motion? Mr. Leahy.
All right, the motion would be that the extended time subcommittee look into a so-called summer school program during the winter months, say from November to March, for, basically for purpose of bringing some of students up that are struggling in reading or math.
Okay.
I'll second Mr. Leahy's
So
motion,
moved by
Ron.
Mr. Leahy, second by Mr. Fattacante. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Any other corrections to the minutes?
No.
Okay. Motion to approve by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Under permission to enter, Madam Superintendent.
Yes, Mayor Martin, several contract amendments and proposals. The first, most of them have to do with special education tuition placements. So the City of Haverhill, $10,764 to provide for the out-of-district tuition cost for 2 students who are enrolled in receiving services. The City of Springfield, $17,197, provide for the out-of-district tuition cost for 1 student who is enrolled in receiving services. St. Anne's Home, $75,210 to amend the existing contract to provide for the out-of-district additional costs for 6 students and the addition of 3 students enrolled in receiving services as outlined in their educational plans. The Greater Lawrence Educational Collaborative, $78,730 to amend the existing contract to provide for the out-of-district additional costs for 11 students and the addition of 4 students enrolled and receiving services. And the last one, Merrimack Education Center, $31,350 to amend the existing contract to provide for services for 3 additional students. All of those contracts funded by the Special Education Department budget, Special Education tuition account. And if I could just comment that that in the course of the year, students leave some placements, go to others, and we adopt contracts in the summer for the whole following year in anticipation of what the cost will be. It's never possible to predict those precisely, so we bring back to you amendments when some contracts, some costs at some school, some of the placements are going to be higher. It also, you can assume here that that many of the contracts that you voted authorizations of up to, we've not spent all that up to. So we still are in control of our budget for tuition and transportation.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes, I'll make a motion that we approve, but just before we do that, maybe the City of Haverhill and the City of Springfield, maybe you can contact those 2 school systems and see what their, for the school choice vote would be, because that must be a similar situation that we're looking to do. I would take it. Is that what you think?
I think that's a good idea to check.
So just see how they took it. Maybe the language is crafted the same way as another way to check as well.
Right, and it may or may not be within the school choice. It could be a collaborative program, so we'll have to look at that.
Okay,
But
just
those-
it's just a
It's a
thought,
good
that's
lead.
all.
It's a good lead.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? It's motion to approve by Mr. McHugh, second by Ms. Doherty. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Larry,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes?
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Under memorials, we have one offered by Ms. Fattacante for Doris Mitchell, mother of Sharon Fennelly, assistant principal at the Lincoln School, and 4 others, I believe. Are those yours, Ms. Fattacante, as well? Are those the committee as a whole? Committee as a whole, Michael Ryan Jr., son-in-law of Linda Hunter, a paraprofessional at the Lincoln School. He's also the son of Mike Ryan, who was a former security officer at Lowell High School. David Fattacante, brother-in-law of Jean Fattacante, paraprofessional at the Lincoln School. Leo Mendez Sr., father-in-law of Linda Mendez, a paraprofessional at the Lincoln School. And Arlene Smith, grandmother of Sarah Delahante, paraprofessional at the Lincoln School. If we could rise in a moments of silence and darken chambers in their memories, please. May they rest in peace. I believe there are no matters under unfinished business or public participation, which would bring us to the motions. The first motion is by Ms. Doherty. Request the superintendent provide a report on middle school attendance that includes the average number of absences by grade, school, and ethnicity over the last 2 years, as well as up-to-date data for the current school year. The report should also include information regarding percentage of students retained, required to attend summer school, and other consequences or interventions related to attendance at the middle school level. Second by Mr. Leary. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. As my colleagues know, we have been looking very closely at the high school attendance issue. And I know about a month ago, a colleague had a motion regarding middle school attendance policy. And I really mean this motion to complement that motion, that as we look at the middle school policy, I think it's very important to also look at the data. You know, how many kids are missing school? What are the numbers? Who are those kids at the middle school level to inform whatever policy changes or decisions we make going forward? And that's my intention with this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
Yeah, I'm certainly going to support it. I was your colleague that put that motion. I think this is good data that will back up a lot of what we're looking at, really to tie in not only kindergarten through 5th grade, but 4th grade, 5th grade through 8th grade, and ultimately align ourselves appropriately with what our attendance policy is at the high school. So I think what one part of a large puzzle is to align the earlier grades with what we have at the high school and then review what we have at the high school. So this is definitely good information we need to use to come to some consensus in decision making.
Thank you. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved. The next motion is by Ms. Doherty. Request the superintendent provide a report to the Lowell High School Subcommittee on current outreach efforts to the 8th grade parochial school students and their families. The report should include processes in place to welcome these families to Lowell High and inform them about summer school opportunities such as the advanced math course, band camp, freshman football, as well as the many other positive experiences available to students when they attend Lowell High School. Second by Mr. Leary. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. Yes, this really, I think it speaks for itself. I've just been hearing anecdotal stories from different families across the city who are not aware of some of the programs we have, specifically this summer, for 8th grade students entering the high school. And my concern is that we're not doing as much outreach to these families as we should in terms of really welcoming them to the high school and letting them know what are some opportunities that are available for their students. So I'm hoping that just generating the report will help us to see, you know, what kind of process we have in place and how we might expand on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
In terms of what we're currently doing and finding out what process we have in place, just, you know, kind of a quick off-the-cuff answer. It's my understanding that we would not be doing anything for private schools over and above what we do for our own current public school students. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So then, just to understand my colleague's intention, we'd be looking to get a proposal from the superintendent as to what she'd like to do differently in terms of servicing private school students? Is that what you're looking for, or?
Ms. Doherty? Yeah.
Yes, through you to my colleague. My concern is these students are students who will be coming to the high school in the 9th grade. Many of them, their parents are making decisions about whether to send their child to the high school. And many of them have attended high school open houses. And when I asked them, well, do you know about the Step Up Math program, or do you know about the Math Summer Academy, they didn't know about these programs. So I'm specifically looking at families whose students would be members of the high school in the fall. That's where, I mean, I don't know if I wasn't clear in the language of the motion. That's where I'm thinking the community of families in Lowell that we would like to come to the high school, that are considering the high school as an option, to kind of let them know the supports and programs that we have in place for their students. I don't know if that helps clarify where.
A little bit, certainly. I mean, my only concern would be, I think that we need to take a serious look at our transition process across the district, and for all students that are making that truly critical transition from a middle school environment to the high school environment. I think if the open house nights that we host, I think a lot of the different materials that we produce about opportunities at the high school are of great value to each and every family in our community that's making decisions about their child's education. What I would like to avoid would be offering some kind of specialized evening or some kind of specialized recruitment. Certainly in terms of freshman football or sports programs, I suspect we'd have some MIAA concerns around that if we're specifically trying to recruit middle school athletes. And I guess I don't want to reword the motion of my colleague, but just to add a concern, I would much prefer to have a program in place or a report that would tell us how we accurately promote the offerings at Lowell High School to all families in that position, as opposed to specializing or segregating them based on their school of origin.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
I think that's an excellent idea. If we amend it to take out outreach efforts to 8th graders, take out parochial school students, to say 8th grade students and their families across the city, because really my concern is also that some of the middle schools haven't been getting the information as well as other middle schools. So I think that more accurately reflects my intention with this motion. So
Excellent.
I would say if we took out parochial and just say 8th grade students and their families across the city. I feel that's perfect.
Excellent. I appreciate that, and I would support that wholeheartedly.
She's amending it.
Right.
You want to second her amendment, Martin?
Motion to amend, is that what?
So I think Ms. Doherty's amending her own motion to delete the word parochial. Second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Any further discussion on the motion? Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea also, and I would say if we don't have a package right now that we do hand out to incoming freshmen, we should get working on it, and I'm glad that you brought this up. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approved. Next item are subcommittee reports. The first subcommittee report is from the Curriculum Subcommittee, report and approval of the minutes of the April 24, 2007 meeting. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The Subcommittee on Curriculum and Instruction did meet on April 24th. In attendance from the school committee were all three subcommittee members, myself, Ms. Jackie Doherty, and Mr. James Leary. From the central administration, we had Jean Franco, our interim deputy superintendent, and there were a list of other staff who attended. As we kind of go through the topic areas, I'll include the names of the individuals who were kind enough to take their time to better inform the subcommittee. To begin with, our first topic, which will require a vote of the full school committee, was a proposed research activity for a doctoral program that Robert Murphy, currently the principal in the Robinson School here in Lowell, is going to be conducting as part of his studies. It is certainly a very interesting program that is going to be testing the effectiveness of a computer program that Principal Murphy has developed, a software package that tests Khmer-speaking students who do speak English but may not have the same capacity to read and write in Khmer and have issues in reading English. The software is designed so that students can, as they go through the process, will have pop-up explanations that help define recognized problem words in an effort to improve vocabulary and improve their content retention as they read through text offerings. The process will be tested at 2 different sites, including the Lowell High School Freshman Academy and the Stocklosa Middle School. There's going to be a total of 105 students participating in the study. And he will be using it to prove a dissertation theory on the usefulness of this particular software package. The distribution will be through the university where he is studying, Walden University, and it would be purged of all specific names of school students. All those types of things would be taken from any published materials. The subcommittee did discuss it with Principal Murphy. It certainly seems like a promising area of research, and the subcommittee did in fact approve recommendation to the full school committee to authorize our district's participation in this research project. And I'd submit that to the full committee in the form of a motion to approve this proposal.
So moved by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Leary. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Excellent. The next topic that we took up in the subcommittee was a review of the Bartlett Community School. This is a school that is really in its, I guess, second year as a new school, the combination of the demonstration school and the McDonough Magnet School. And it has certainly gone through this process with a great deal of support from the district as a whole and the central administration, but also has had the benefit of a great deal of help and support from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell Graduate School of Education. Some of the basic facts that were shared with us, that the migration both in and out of the Bartlett is fairly in line with what's happening across the district. There's no marked pattern of students migrating out of the school. It is, especially in the second year, reaching a kind of consistent level of transiency in line with what we experienced throughout our district. We did discuss some of the areas where the initial plans that were in place to open the Bartlett and to combine these 2 school cultures, where there were some challenges that were met by the faculty and the staff at the Bartlett. Some of the key ones that we had talked about really were the combination of 2 very different school cultures, and really the need in the end to create a wholly new one that we hope retained the best of both, and yet really became a wholly new entity. There was one of the critical aspects of our thought process behind opening these new schools, or one of the innovative aspects of it, was that we had wanted to have an extended day component as a mandatory piece of attendance at the Bartlett Community School, and that was something, again, one of the challenges that was run into in that first year that simply we weren't able to maintain and weren't able to make work. And there was so that was one of the, I think, critical areas where we pulled back from the initial vision. I think as we look forward into the next year, I was extremely heartened to see the continued enthusiasm and commitment of Dr. Donald Pearson, who is the Dean of the Graduate School of Education at UMass Lowell, for their commitment to working with the Bartlett and to really help us turn the Bartlett into a professional development school, a school that would really test out best practices, that would become the place within our district where we really would give new teachers an opportunity to develop their skills with the benefit of more senior master teachers, and really trying to ensure that both the partnership between the university and the Bartlett is substantive and positive for both partners. One of the key things as we move forward, and again, in working with the university, the Graduate School of Education has agreed to work with the administration at the Bartlett in planning a summer retreat for staff from both institutions so that they really can focus on planning and goal setting for this upcoming school year. They are talking about really working together to jointly develop professional development school goals for the school, both in terms of, for the inherent good of the quality of education at the Bartlett, but also in terms of the university's looking forward towards their accreditation that they will be going through in 2009. And this really being, they really see the professional development school at the Bartlett as a linchpin, I think, in ensuring that they do achieve extremely high marks in when they go through their accreditation process. Overall, I think both Principal Grace Way, who did attend the meeting, was really very clear in her continued enthusiasm and commitment to working with the staff that's in place at the Bartlett. And I think it really was quite clear the commitment to students and high student achievement, which I certainly appreciated, and that I think we all demand of all of our administrators, certainly no more or less at the Bartlett. I would defer to my colleagues if they have, this was a big item on our agenda, and I know we had a lot of questions, so I'd certainly encourage my colleagues if they have anything to add.
Mr. Leary.
Thank you. I want to thank Committeewoman Connie Martin for chairing an excellent and very long meeting. I do want to, it's an excellent and successfully long meeting. I guess what I want to point out at this time is that I consider this an initial conversation that we're going to, I'm definitely going to be pushing right after the budget's over to continue. I truly appreciate the Dean of Education, Don Pearson, coming in and supporting the UMass Lowell's education continue involvement. I mean, they put about $200,000 of the UMass Lowell money into this specific school. They put a lot of effort, and I'm glad to hear from conversations at that meeting that he had some proactive action plans regarding how to change some of the issues or challenges that we've had in the first 2 years that we've still are currently working on. So I'll have a lot to say after the budget time's over in terms of are these goals achievable? Are these goals something that I would support? But I am encouraged with UMass Lowell's involvement, and I truly am encouraged with both the committee members on the subcommittee, their involvement and their hard questions and their hard work on that meeting. Again, I consider it an initial conversation that's far from over. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
I just want to add one thing. I think that certainly there have been a lot of challenges with this new school, and I think we're starting to see our way through with there's some indications here. The one that struck me was the teacher attendance having improved from 3.6% last year to 1.9% this year, and these figures surpass our district percentages. To me, that says a lot about the involvement of the teachers in the whole team effort of what needs to happen at the school. And I agree, we need to keep looking at it, seeing what kind of support that we need to continue to give the Bartlett. But I thought that was an indicator that things are moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Continuing on, the next topic that we had discussed at the subcommittee meeting was a review of the success of our intervention programs currently in place, both in the elementary and middle schools, both again for math and for English language arts. We had Dr. Pamela Buchek, who was there to present the results of the intervention program in terms of the English language arts component of our programming. We started with the middle school student interventions. These are a program that's in place now, and this is true for all the interventions, a program that's in place so that we can take those students who are struggling, who are at risk, and who need some additional support around these topic areas, and being able to give them additional attention, additional experience with the subject matter, and really being able to give them some focused work and curriculum that will help them not only continue to improve their skills, but really close the gap of achievement between where they're at and where their peers are at. I think it's one of the biggest challenges that's faced by any, in any learning environment, that when you have students at a variety of levels, it's critically important to ensure that while all students are moving ahead, there needs to be some particular attention paid to making sure that those students who are struggling do not fall further and further behind, because the more you have to make up, obviously it's a bigger and bigger challenge. So the intervention system that we've put in place is designed to really help close that gap, that achievement gap, across the elementary and middle schools. Starting with the English language arts at the middle school, there were one of the key components of this intervention was Power Up, which is a program, a computer program that's been put in place to support students. There has been, the early results so far have been encouraging, but I think, and I believe the subcommittee felt the same way, that we will be looking for additional reports come the end of the school year, so that, even though we can target and we can prove documented growth across all grade levels, it's such that we're really anticipating and expecting that it will be dramatically more improvement when we have our end-of-year tests. At the elementary level, we were reviewing data from Reading First schools, and again, they have shown demonstrated growth focused on, as we were discussing this, focused on kindergarten, first through third grade, really seeing those as the areas of where there's the greatest need for support. And again, this is a situation where all of our interventions yield ongoing data and give us an ongoing snapshot of student achievement that allows us to be extremely flexible and fluid in the way that we can change approaches and the way that we can work with individual students on a one-on-one basis to ensure that they're grasping the material appropriately. Within the elementary area, I'm pleased to see that we are using DIBELS, which is an assessment instrument. I'm not even going to pretend to know what it stands for, to be honest with you, but what I find most compelling about it is that it is a nationally normed test, which gives us information that is not necessarily limited to our district. It gives us information on performance that we can really compare nationwide because of the nature of the way the test is scored. Again, as we look at the interventions at the elementary school for the English language arts, there is steady growth of students. They've now gone through 3 different benchmark tests to ensure that we could track the progress as they move, and there has been progress, and we can point at that. I think, again, as we look at this, coming up to the end of the school year now is when we're really going to get the most definitive data that will tell us whether the Reading First programs are as effective as we need them to be. So it is encouraging to see that the interventions from the English language arts side are positive and moving in the right direction. But again, I think we're all looking forward to seeing the summative data at the end of the school year so that we can make some decisions moving forward. We also had Claire Abrams, who is our math coordinator for the district, make a similar report regarding the mathematics interventions happening across the district. As we looked at I just want to make sure this is tied to the both first through fourth grade and fifth through 8. Looking at it again, we were able to mark progress being made over the course of time. We had also been given a comparison of specific standards that were chosen by teachers as the most foundational was the term that we had used. The really critical number sense, understanding a lot of the real central literacy kind of topics that students need to have a true grasp on before they can move forward at all. And looking at the tracking of those across the district, across the middle school specifically, to ensure that there is some consistency across the districts in terms of achievement. The materials that were given to us in terms of the graphs and the reports certainly contained a great deal of information, and I think in working with the superintendent and the administration, we could go a ways towards making it more effectively presented and something that the committee and the community can take more information from. At the end of the day, really, the critical thing that I walked away with was this idea that we are looking at steady growth and at steady improvement in terms of specific student performance on these foundational concepts. And I do think that that bodes well so that when we are looking at the end of year reporting, we will be able to, I think, optimistically be able to see that these programs are having the exact effect that we require, and that they are helping those students who need our help the most, getting them caught up so that they can then continue to progress throughout the rest of their career here with us in the Lowell Public Schools. I don't know if there's any comments. There you go.
Ms. Doherty?
I'd just like to add something about the interventions, because I think it's one of the key changes we made last year. And I know it's been a huge amount of work for our teachers and our coordinating staff, our math and ELA staff, but I think it's really showing results that are worth it. For some of these students, it's not going to happen in 1 year. The growth is going to take more time, and we know that. But just to kind of give some statistics for the ELA group at the elementary level, the third graders showed nearly 1/3 of the third graders exceeded the expected benchmark. The second graders, it was more than 25% exceeded the expected benchmark. When you get to the kindergarten level, it was more than 50% exceeded the expected benchmark, and this is only 5 months into the program. So we know that we're going to see even better results by the end of the year. And I think when you look at what is truly a quality education, it's an education that meets the needs of the child and brings them to the next level. And that's what these interventions are doing. And I'm very optimistic, and I think it was a very important move that this district made last year. I think we're going to see some continued positive results from it, and I just wanted to say that because I think it has been quite a bit of effort on the part of our teaching staff and our administrators to really make this happen within the school day that we have. We haven't changed the times. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final topic area that we addressed at the subcommittee meeting was the USIPs, the school improvement plans. We had a presentation from Mr. Jim Neary discussing how the addendums to the USIPs have been developed, giving schools the opportunity to make some changes in terms of their using the data that they're receiving on student performance to fine-tune their approach even in this current year, certainly moving into next year. One of the key things we talk about certainly is accountability measures, and the fact that a key area within that is that we need to, as we collect all of this data, which certainly we talk about in a wide variety of ways and that we collect in a wide variety of ways, the reality is that it's only useful to us if we use it. And making significant substantive administrative and curriculum decisions based on this kind of data is what really, I think, is what's improving our school district today and what will continue to improve our performance and our student performance over these many years in the future. So certainly the information provided by Mr. Neary was very interesting in terms of the process and how schools have been involved in this. And at this point, all of the schools have completed their addendums and provided feedback so that as we are moving forward and making decisions from the central office perspective and from the school committee perspective, we do have the most current and up-to-date information based on what the schools themselves are looking at in terms of improvement measures for next year. And if you thought the report was long, you should have been at the meeting.
Okay. Further discussion on the report? A motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. Leary, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. The next subcommittee report is a report on the joint Lowell High School and Finance Subcommittee report and approval of the minutes of the April 30, 2007 meeting. Ms. Doherty and Mr. McHugh. Who's it? Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. Yes, the joint meeting between the Lowell High School Subcommittee and the Finance Subcommittee. Members present included myself, James Leary, Chair of the Finance Subcommittee, Kevin McHugh, John Leahy, and Mr. Leary is also on the Finance Subcommittee. We had rather a lengthy meeting as well. I will try to go through this quickly. The first item was a discussion about the alternative school programs. We're looking at more alternative program options, not necessarily to grow the program a huge amount in terms of numbers, maybe an additional 30 students, but to really try to focus our alternative programs more on the needs of our students. So the high school came up with 3 basic points about how to expand the program options. One was to have a proactive approach with the Freshman Academy that would include kind of a freshman tracker program where we would identify students who are at risk for being in our alternative program and provide support services for those students from the beginning of the time they enter the Freshman Academy. The guidance counselors and social workers would work in a triage system, really collaborating together to meet the needs of these students so that they could remain part of the Freshman Academy. The second point was to redesign the Malloy program, which is currently our main alternative program for high school students. And the way it would be redesigned is it would be to have 2 separate tracks. It would be in the same building, but students would be separated. One track would be for students who need more of a therapeutic approach, more social emotional needs, and the other would be to create a positive behavior intervention track for students with discipline needs, to kind of separate those students and really meet the needs of where they are, again with the intention of getting those students up and ready to return back to the main high school. To do this would require the addition of 2 teachers, because they want to add 30 students to the program, and some technology and security needs, some more computers, some cameras, things like that. We didn't have actual numbers that night, but we know that that would impact the budget. So I'm assuming those numbers will be coming shortly. The third component of this alternative program options was to have a pilot evening program for credit recovery that would enable students who have failed the same class twice, and we're talking specifically about geometry and English 3 and 4, so it would only be two or three classes, would be able to, will be required to take classes in the evening. Because what's happening is you'll have students their 3rd time around on geometry, they're making the class size very large, which is impacting the learning of the other students. And the thinking was to kind of make it, you get 2 tries, after that you take it in the evening, where we already have a program running through adult education. This would still be a high school program, though. It would not be adult ed. It would be our responsibility. We would provide the teachers, but the administration of the building, the custodians, all that, those people would already be in place. So the cost would be minimal to the school department. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on that.
Mr. Leary.
First of all, I want to say that I think this is great. I think this is also one step and hopefully like a continuing plan throughout the next few years. We added additional 30 students that need alternative services, a predominantly discipline out of the high school into a different environment where not only it's kind of a twofer, we're getting benefit at the high school so the teachers can help, educate the students without having an incorrigible involvement, and we can actually provide services that are beneficial to the incorrigible child or the child that needs alternative services, for lack of a better terminology. I think this is only an initial step. It's this year's step, and I think as we go into this, going in the next few years, that if we add and change and develop this program, we're going to have a model program throughout not only the state, but the nation. What was interesting to me is that a lot of other schools like Lynn and Brockton actually have a bigger program. And I think that with the resources that we have and some of the creative planning that's going on right now, our programs will be maybe not bigger, but much more effective. So again, I don't think this is something that this is going to end. This is a first step. I think the pilot program at night is excellent. It's something that, we've discussed this offline in Lowell High School subcommittee meetings directly with the headmaster, with the superintendent, with the housemasters, with all the staff over at the high school. How do you really address the students' needs? And you have to really think outside the box. And I think having a night school area for young folks who are not passing courses systematically, that this will not only help the student, hopefully this is an incentive where they'll be successful, but it also helps the class where a student's going to try to pass it, where the teacher can put their time into that particular individuals that are passing it on the initial or the second time around. So I'm excited. There's a lot more in this meeting that I'll be talking about in regards to what happened. This is one positive component that I think will serve our students' needs. As far as financing it, really, and I think the superintendent will get into this is really realigning our money at the high school to the servants' needs. So basically, it's a trade-off. That's what's really what we're going to be doing in terms of what the students need. The money follows where the customers, if you will, where their needs are. And I think this is one great example of what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Federicanti?
Thank you, Your Honor. I definitely think it's thinking out of the box, but I think I need some more information. And here's my concern. One of the things that we recognize is that when students are not passing courses, one of the contributing factors for some students is their attendance. So my concern is if we're not getting students to attend during the day, what is the guarantee we're going to get students to attend in the evening? That's my concern, that we have this great program in the evening and students are saying, yeah, right. You can't even get me to go to during the day. What is the probability of students coming at night? So that's my concern. My concern is that we have set the program to fail only because students are not going to be coming to an evening program. I guess I would need more information. I would like to see, for those students who are failing without names, what is their attendance record? If the attendance is the issue of the failing, then a night program is not going to be successful. It's going to have to be something else. And as Mr. Leary said, again, thinking out of the box to get those youngsters to come to school on a regular basis so they get the education necessary to pass the course. And geometry was a tough subject, and I remember it painfully remember it, oh, so painfully. And I passed because I begged my teacher, and I sucked it up, and I was there every day. And I just think that we need to do something more than just say, hey, let's have a night program, kids will go to the night program. I think that we need to look at what's the attendance for these people who are failing, and if the attendance is a problem, then I don't know if the night program is going to be out of the box enough for us to secure passage or passing for those youngsters. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
No, and I agree with my colleague. It's a good question. I think this is also a pilot program, and I think the numbers they're going to be using are low numbers to see how effective it is, and it's going to need a lot of tweaking as you go on. But what we're doing now isn't working, so we really got to be. And I think additional information wouldn't be a bad thing. I think you're right, but I also think if we continue what we're doing now, it matters not. We're failing already. They're not making success in this area, and it's also impacting other students. The teachers are having students who are failing in the class the third time. So I don't disagree with my colleague, and we could actually, that might be a good motion at this point to ask for the attendance records of those students that are going to go in to the pilot program, and I'll make that in the form of a motion, and I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'll second that.
And really kind of make sure that when we do the pilot program, there's a specific support system to see if this is going to work. I think that's totally appropriate.
Your Honor, through you to my colleagues, I was not able to attend the meeting. What is the guarantee that students attend the evening program? I mean, is it you either do this or not graduate? I mean, what is the drawback for not going? Because there has to be a huge stick.
Ms. Doherty?
Well, we actually discussed the whole thing about attendance, and one of the points that was made to us was many of these classes, let's say it's your first class of the day, is geometry. You sleep late, you miss it. So you might not be missing all the other classes of the day, but so for some kids, if it's an early morning class that they're not showing up for, this will provide that safety net. But my understanding was they're really looking at it as like, you've already failed this class twice, you have to take it now in the late, it's going to be a late afternoon thing, and it's your kind of like a, I mean, I don't know what the policy is now, how many times they can fail the same class. But that issue about attendance, if we face it with the middle school kids, many of our middle school kids who come to summer school are kids that didn't go to school all year, that we're trying again, because we're just trying in as many ways as we can to get the kids engaged. We just, and I think that this is another effort in that direction.
Ms. Fattacanti.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sold on it. I'm not sold on it because it's an excuse. And I don't get to my first class because it's geometry, because I hate geometry. If it were art or music or something else, then I would have my butt in the seat. So shame on our administrators who haven't figured that out the second time around and scheduled geometry after lunch or in the later afternoon. That's what we should be thinking about. My concern is that we're going to set up this wonderful program that's like a tutoring program, tell students they're forced to go, and no one shows up. And secondly, I don't know if we can say you are forced to come to an evening program, or you can't graduate. I just have a problem saying that. Shame on us that we haven't figured something out better before this.
Mr. Leary?
Just real quick, I think we don't have to make an approval of that tonight, so there's a time where we can help persuade you, or at least make changes where we need to. There's other parts of the meeting regarding attendance we touched base on, and some of those challenges that we'll be getting into at a later point. Some of those challenges are a lot of the attendance problems are in the freshman academy, and one of the things that was pointed out, it's been pointed out to me actually by some parents, that if we don't have a busing system for the high school for the freshmen, and maybe we need to work on some programs or some type of assistance from the state or the federal government to get them bus passes, and maybe they can make it then. And this is areas that I think we discussed and we'll discuss further, but I think the pilot program, and the operative word is pilot, certain numbers, I think understanding what is going on while they're failing, because we can do it a third time again and they're going to fail it again, they're going to end up dropping out. We have to really go outside and try to change that element. I'm not 100% sure it's going to work, but I think trying this pilot, measuring some of the successes or failures is a good thing. I think the first start is an idea of seeing how many of them are actually missing class. And then we can really get into more, we don't have to make a decision tonight on that. We can make a decision in the next, May, by the end of the budget, maybe even in June. So I think it's just a kind of initial dialogue that is evolving. So I motion to review the attendance records for the folks that we're going to be submitting into the pilot program.
All right. So moved by Mr. Leary, second by Ms. Fattacante. Mr. McHugh.
Yes, just briefly, I agree with my colleague. I think we will talk about it in one of the later reports. I mean, that was actually my question as we were going through these is, I feel that we're constantly trying to put a Band-Aid on a problem, and we're making adjustments downstream and not going back to say, what is the root of the problem? And it is attendance. And it kind of stuck out on one of the other reports that when we get there, I'll talk about it, but I think we have to kind of take that step backwards, and I would agree with Ms. Fattacante that we need to take a look to say, why aren't these kids really coming to class? Right. Why aren't they there? Let's go and find the solution to that problem, not say, how can we develop a new program or tweak a program so that they all can get through the program. And sometimes that has to be done. I think our goal is not to let children graduate or pass them or fail them because they're just either lazy or flat out don't want to come to school. But I think we have to do our best effort to try to address that original problem and outreach and really find out why they're not coming. And one of the answers was that at the freshman academy is that transportation was raised, that kids just can't get there. They get there when they get there. So if they're not getting there early enough because they're walking or they just can't get a bus or can't afford to ride a bus, that's part of the problem. So I think we have to look at that bigger problem before we can, really dive into something like this. I think it's a good solution, but if it's easier for children to get there at the end of the day, and that's going to be something maybe as part of this development that you survey the children, because I also asked the question about, this is their third time taking a class. How do they continue to keep moving forward? Are we the 5-year plan high school now? I mean, you can't move on to the next class if you failed the class prior. But if there are other math requirements, I think that was my concern, that if you had to take further math requirements, you can't get through these math. You can't, you're already falling behind. So I looked at that as a real problem that we have to really be looking at, because I don't want to see, children just failing and then get frustrated, and then they're going to probably just drop out. And I don't think we're looking to increase our dropout rates at all. We're trying to make it available so every child has the option. And I agree that we have to look at that a little closer as well, and not just say, well, let's just pave the path for them so the least resistance will get there too. So there has to be a combination of both, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leahy.
I just had a couple of comments. I think we got sidetracked on this geometry thing, but we were talking about, the alternative programs. So at the meeting, I thought it was a good meeting about the alternative programs that Mr. Leary has brought up many questions about this. Excuse me. And I was encouraged by this. And we still need further discussions on what we're going to do with our alternative programs. But what I thought is good is that we're working on this plan now, because when we build these 2 new schools coming up and we have staff available, and we can improve our alternative schools, and after looking at the models from Lynn and Brockton, we too can have one of the better alternative schools in the state. So that was very encouraging. And to separate the kids with, say, emotional problems versus discipline problems, that's going to be a big step for us too. And that's what we need to do, and that's something that school committee person Tim Golden always talked about. We need to pull out the kids with discipline problems and separate them, and we're going to make Lowell High School that much better, that much easier to run. So I was very encouraged by this. We still have a little ways to go with it, but it was a very good meeting on the alternative schools and the needs that we're going to be addressing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so roll call on the motion for, we don't need a roll call, but all those in favor of the motion for more data, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion's approved. And motion to accept this portion of the report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That portion of the report is accepted. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, the next item on the agenda was the status of the Lowell High School science labs. As my colleagues know, we have to supply a report of progress to the accreditation team by January of '08, so it's imperative that we get this work done. Basically, we're looking at some repairs and maintenance work that have to be done to the 11 labs we currently have. I think overall, the goal is to have more students having more quality time in science labs. We know that, the world we live in today requires very skilled science students, especially with the MCAS test and science coming up. So there was some discussion that ways we could do that, in addition to maintaining and doing the repairs needed in the labs we have, is to have better balancing of classes to increase the number of students in science labs, explore ways to use technology to provide lab work through software programs, and that all students enrolled in Read 180 classes will take life science freshman year and biology sophomore year, that we're hoping will be enough to prepare them for the MCAS. And we're also looking in lieu of that with expanding efforts to minimize the number of students enrolled in 2 physical education classes. I think what's happening, we start mostly at the senior level. There are 60 seniors who are taking, they're honor students who get science lab, and the days that they don't have science lab, they have physical education. So you've got 60 students who are having physical education twice. And that was a problem that we thought, nothing against phys ed. It was one of my favorite classes, but that we thought that it might be more meaningful to have them taking other kinds of classes, or perhaps looking at directed study or things like that. So we did discuss the whole science lab issue. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on this one.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes, just briefly, I couldn't agree more. I think out of this outcome is there are only so many labs. We have to maximize the space. But I think that's, as far as the technology, we're trying to be more cutting edge and looking at virtual labs, I think, is another way, using a computer lab that could be a science lab if there's something that we could look at. I think that's maybe for some of the lesser classes a way to look at, so you could, the classes that really need to do experiments could be using the lab for its fullest. I think those are the type of things we are looking at as options. to try to, provide more sections for students to do that type of situation. So I think those are the items we need to, and I think the other outcome was a lot of the issues that were identified that needs to be adjusted is that we would have the superintendent just send a letter over, because the summer's coming, now's the time to get all those, the valves that need to be fixed and things of that nature through the city. It'd be a great summer project for them, so we're ready to go in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
Just real quick, I think, just to go on regarding the motion that was made was regarding students taking 2 physical education classes because there was no availability for science labs. And we got into a very good discussion about what Committeeman McHugh was articulating that I couldn't articulate a minute ago, really regarding that we need to be creative with alternative methods of getting science programs to our students. Obviously, I think we need to start looking down the road in terms of making more labs. That would be really the ideal. There's a motion that we'll be making shortly regarding repairing the labs that we have, and I think that's obviously of importance. But I think we should take a look at some of these electives that we have. The promise, the language we got from the Lowell High School subcommittee from the administration at the high school is that there wasn't enough electives, or there was too many electives. I wasn't completely absolutely sure. I think what the headmaster promised is that he's going to ensure that there's a mechanism to capture if someone's taking 2 physical education classes in a semester, unless they actually volunteered to take 2 physical educations during a semester. So I think that's promising, but we got to look at some of these electives in terms of how many, are we offering too many electives, are we too many things, or are we offering too few electives? I think this is an issue as we go through the summer we need to really take a look at.
Thank you. Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. My comments would be that this part of the meeting was a good discussion, but what I came away from it was that I think we don't want to micromanage, but we hear from our parents whose students go to the high school, and I almost feel that we need to get a report on this, on how we're going to organize the labs for next year, just to make sure what's going on. I don't know. I mean, the best way for these kids to learn is a hands-on approach. The virtual labs that Mr. McHugh was talking about, that's probably a good idea. But from speaking to a science teacher, they're going to tell you hands-on is the best experience. If the high school doesn't have enough labs, then maybe we need to look into doing a couple portables or something with labs. I mean, we need to have labs at the high school, and this is type of a situation. This is an issue that's been ongoing. We talked about this maybe 2 years ago. I think we had somebody come up to the mic, and they talked about at their district where they were a teacher, they do so many labs a year. So, do we have enough labs? Do we have enough labs available for our students? And if we don't, we're not pointing fingers, we're just saying, let's get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
Well, I think that's a good comment that Mr. Committeeman Leahy said. I think maybe we should, I'll even make a motion, basically, if we're in the budget time, whether it's reality or not reality, if we can get a report regarding is there a feasibility of getting a mobile lab or some type of off-site lab that would rectify this issue. We're all cognizant, whether it's going to happen this year or not, we need to put this in place for next year. I mean, this is something that we need to take advantage of. I know there's not a lot of money. Probably there isn't money to do this, but there's something we should put some type of plan in place to look into this. If we can't do it for next year, we do it the following year. So I'll make a motion that we request the administration put a plan in place to look at alternatives, actual physical lab environments to augment what we already have, because we know we need additional labs. That's what was said to us by the headmaster at the meeting. The reality of it, doing it when there's a tight budget and expenses are, jumping through the roof, et cetera, might not be reality, but let's at least take a look at what the costs are, see if we can make some other additional trade-offs or realignments. Maybe there'll be someone donating money for a lab, but I think that's something we at least got to get a report saying, what are the costs for something, for an alternative, physical alternative? Thanks. I make that as a motion.
So moved by Mr. Leary, second by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? Ms. Doherty.
Yes, I wanted to say there is a motion regarding the status of the Lowell High Labs that was made that night. It was a motion by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary, to request that the superintendent send a letter to the city manager asking that the repairs and maintenance of the Lowell High School science labs be completed during the summer vacation.
Okay. So moved by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's approved. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, next item on the agenda was MCAS information. This was a report that highlighted how the school was providing MCAS preparation classes. Discussion centered on efforts in previous years. You know, we used to have quite a bit of grant funding that allowed for a more concentrated tutorial program, which had the benefits of smaller classes being held during the school day, and we saw good returns on that. So basically, we looked at, there are approximately 170 students who failed the test at least one time that are taking an MCAS prep class. There are approximately 25 to 30 students in each MCAS prep class. Each year, there's a decrease in the number of students who receive a certificate of attainment rather than a diploma, which means they were not able to pass the MCAS in time to graduate with a diploma. And also the point that district MCAS scores were favorable when compared to other urban districts. Now, I'll remind my colleagues that we were one of the top 3 urban districts in the state to have 50% or more of our high school students achieve proficiency or advanced. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about MCAS, or can I move on?
At that meeting, the headmaster promised to provide us some information regarding costs for additional either tutors or paraprofessionals to assist with that. So when we do the budget deliberations, we can make decisions to add this or not add this, or realign things or not realign them. So we will be getting, we were promised information from the headmaster regarding potential costs regarding improving this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, the next item on the agenda had to do with the school resource officer program. Currently, in the Lowell schools, we have 9 police officers. 2 are paid by the Lowell Public Schools. The rest are paid by the Lowell Police Department. We were told at this meeting that there is a possibility that we could lose 3 middle school resource officers due to budget constraints within the police department for the upcoming fiscal year. We talked about the fact that we don't currently have police officers for all of our middle schools. There's a sharing process that goes on, and some middle schools really don't have police officers even as a second-tier approach. And how this was, you know, obviously not the ideal situation, that there's a lot of benefits to having a police officer at the middle schools, developing relationships with our students, and just providing that preventive piece. Some of the other things we talked about that are somewhat problematic, one is that officers are assigned on a seniority basis through a bidding process that happens each January. So that means in January, we could get a completely new police officer assigned to the school than the one who'd been there the year before or been there in September, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of creating a relationship with our students. Other discussion about that was that officers work on a 6-week rotation of 5 days, and then for 6 weeks they work 5 days, and then for 4 weeks they work 4 days. So if they come in on that Friday, when they're during that 4-day rotation, they get paid overtime. This comes out of the police department budget, but it also could be a problem for us because they don't have to come in on that Friday, although I think many of them have been coming in. I guess that was an update on the resource officer program. I think how it impacts the budget is if we want to look at supplementing more police officers in lieu of the possibility of losing some, or discuss the possibility of using security officers at some of our middle schools where we won't have police officers. These were just things that were discussed. Nothing formal was taken on that. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything else about resource officers.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I think we all know how important the school resource officers are, and we all know we're coming into budget season. It's very tight on the city side. It's going to be tight on the school side. We've made dramatic cuts over the years, and through the years through negotiations, the contracts have changed and the way we do business in hiring and choosing who's in our schools. But I would ask that, and I don't want to put this all on your shoulders, Mr. Mayor, but I would ask that you take a strong lead with us on this, because we have to come to some sort of agreement. I know we're coming up with negotiations with the police department. I think we need to make some progress there on how we can choose our police officers in the school, if we can, if there's a way to do it. I mean, it needs to come up at least. We need to be dedicated to this, and I think the city does, because we all know that we have unique situations here in the city. If we lose 3 more police officers, I don't know what, it's a shame. I mean, because it starts in the middle schools. We need them in the high school, but it starts in the middle school. And we really need to come together as a city and say, we want to do this. We need to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to come up with a solution. If we're going to lose, there's no way we could lose 3 police officers in the middle school. I mean, I myself and colleagues have met with the city manager and Superintendent LaValle, and we know things are tight, but this is something we really can't let this situation get away from us. It's just gonna, it's, you know, I don't know what to say. It's just, these kids in the middle school, they need our guidance and they need our support, and they need to have this in the middle schools. So if there's some way we can really put this on the front burner during negotiations, we need to keep talking about this. Thank you.
It's a long list. That's
I
all.
know.
Ms. Fattacante.
Thank you, Your Honor. I echo my colleague's sentiments. One of the problems that we encountered a year or so ago was the principal's inability to interview school resource officer potential candidates. It now goes by a bidding of seniority. So somebody may think it's a great job because you work 7 to 3, you get the weekends off, gets into a school and realizes it's probably more work than being on a beat patrol. That being said, I don't think we can afford to lose our school resource officers. I left Madam Superintendent a message regarding a school in the city who probably needs a school resource officer and who has rejected it, which is the Bartlett School, which has a severe disciplinary problem, a huge disciplinary problem. The principal over there has rejected having a school resource officer. I don't know why. And the school resource officer from the Stock Close, from the Butler, gets pulled over there to respond to issues. I don't think it's fair to the Stock Close from the Butler to pull that school resource officer over. I think we could use in addition to what we have. So the concern is losing the people that we have and still having crises occur in our school system. And I don't think security, nothing to downplay security, but I just don't think that they offer us the same type of vision that a school resource officer does. And when I say vision, I mean a school resource officer does a lot of things for us. The program where we get school resource officers to go to students' homes to say, hey, how come you haven't been in school for the past 2 weeks? You can't get your security officer to do that because it's just not the same type of authority. I think it builds trust between youngsters and police officers. Police officers in the schools get huge amounts of gang information from students who have some concerns. I think that the program for us in Lowell is invaluable. And to lose officers is an enormous detriment to our program. So I don't know how this committee wants to, so I don't know the answer to that. And maybe we discuss it during the budget time, I don't know. And I'm going to ask you also to carry the torch to the city regarding the same problem. I don't know what the solution is.
Well, I can tell you, the city manager, I'm sure, and the city council and myself, we know how valuable a program
Right.
it is, too. We also need officers on the street.
Right.
So if we're in a climate where we're reducing budgets, not every position can be saved. But certainly, these are important positions. We know how important they are. We don't want to lose these positions. And I'll make those feelings known, but I can assure you they are already known.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that the report?
Okay. I think there are a couple other items, right?
The next item on the agenda was the buyback program and no credit by course. We were given an overview of the buyback program, which really was in conjunction with the The U grade, which is an unsatisfactory grade that comes into place once a student has more than 5 absences in a class. Even if they're considered passing the class, they've passed the test or whatnot, if they have more than 5 absences, they receive a U grade, which means they get no credit. So there's this buyback program. One of the things that came out about the discussion was the huge numbers, hundreds of students who have these U grades, and what that involves in terms of work on the high school administration, following up with these students. Now, some of those students who have this U, they can work towards this buyback program, which is a contract between the student and the teacher, who they have the U grade from, to make up the time that they missed from class, either by attending on Saturdays and then, so there's a good number of students who are eligible to participate in the buyback program, which also involves a lot of work and effort from the staff at the high school. I think that what came out of this discussion was the buyback program itself wasn't showing huge numbers of success for the amount of work involved for the administration. And also the U grade issue, the hundreds of students who are getting U grades seem to also not be a system that was working well for the high school. There's a tremendous burden put on the housemasters with all these students getting U grades. And I don't have the number right in front of me, but I thought it was something like 500 for the whole school getting U grades. And many of them coming, again, from the freshman level. The freshman students seem to have the hardest time with some of this stuff. So we looked at the fact that this committee is going to need more information, again, about why students aren't attending school, that it seems to be a multifaceted problem. It's not just one simple thing that one quick fix will take care of. We also have to look at our policies regarding the attendance expectations. It was brought out during the meeting that other communities, other districts do not have as stiff policies as we do about class attendance. Let's say 5 absences in a semester. I think they use the examples of Chelmsford and Drake, whose population is not as challenged, if we can use that as some of the members of our student population. They don't have issues with not being able to afford getting to school, for instance. That they have more like 8 absences allowed a semester instead of 5. And certainly those of us who were at the meeting made no commitment that we would make any changes in this area, but that as a committee we need to look at this whole issue very carefully, get much more information about it, and see how we can work together and to really get at the root problems that are impacting our students not coming to class. Thank you.
Ms. Fattacante.
Thank you, Your Honor. We did look at this problem 2 years ago, and we tightened up the number of days absent because, Your Honor, and we have discussed this with geometry 15 minutes ago, if students aren't coming to school, they're not passing classes. It's as simple as that. Every single colleague on this floor has echoed that time and time again. And shame on us when we start saying, oh, because we have challenges, we need to let children be absent some more. No, because we have challenges, children should be expected to be in the classroom because they will get an education and be able to overcome their challenge. For us to begin to think that we should allow more than 8 absences a semester, Your Honor, is absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. The goal is to help children be successful. Part of helping children be successful is having them in the classroom and learning and passing MCAS and graduating. They're not going to pass MCAS if they get to be absent more, because I'm just going to be absent during the MCAS day. For us to think about going back to where we were 2 years ago is educationally defunct. And it might work in Chelmsford where your parent is a brain surgeon and can help you with science. But we're not Chelmsford, and I don't want to compare us to any other district. We're Lowell, and I'm damn proud that we are Lowell. And I don't want to say that we're going to allow children to be absent more because they have difficulty coming to school. Because once we say that to youngsters, you're going to take the 8 days. Oh my goodness. If I had thought I could skip school as a kid, I would have done more skipping than the 1 day I did in 4 years. Okay? Because I was, one day, I know, what a sore person I am. But it was expected that people are be in school. We should lay out the expectation that students should be in school. And to even begin to have the conversation that we should allow more absences means more failure. And I will not accept more failure. I cannot. I cannot. Thank you.
Mr. Leary.
No, and I don't think anyone in the committee is suggesting that we back up anything. I think we've talked about busing and strategies and different techniques. What I haven't heard from in these subcommittee meetings is really the folks that are on the front line, the house masters. And I hate making like 30 different motions in a meeting, but I'd really like to get this problem solved, because the U grades, the kids are passing the class. I don't want to dumb down the system, but they are passing it. So I think we need to listen to the folks that are actually dealing with these students directly, get them before us, look for some changes, challenges, motivations. I know we had the laptop program. We still have some remnants of it, not completely. We have other types of techniques we try to use. We have law enforcement going to the doors of folks, resource officers going to the doors of folks. I think the resource officers are not going to the ones who are passing the grades. In my mind, real quick, if you get a U and you're getting a D and a C, you need to be in the class. Now, somehow, if you aced an A, you're probably an aberration. But regardless, I think what I like to do is make a motion at this point. We have the house masters come in, or a segment of the house masters come into the Lowell High School subcommittee and really strategize or put a plan together to say how we're going to tackle this problem and ensure success with it. So I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Is that the motion that was made at the meeting, or similar to it?
No.
All right, can you restate it again for the?
Have the house masters come to the...
Have the superintendent request the house masters or a delegation of a house masters to attend the next Lowell High School subcommittee meeting to develop strategies, joint meeting of the finance, I apologize, which I'm on both. Joint meeting of the finance and the Lowell High School subcommittee to put together a plan to attack this problem, because it's simply, what we're doing now is not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Second by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. I guess, this was originally my motion, and I was disappointed when this report came in, because if you go through the data, it clearly shows we have I guess I was clarified a little bit, but there are 352 students that qualify to be in this program. We have 3,500 kids at the school. That's 10%. But it could be one child failing that got through 2 classes. So I think this is what I was saying at that meeting is, again, this is a Band-Aid approach. The child should be in class. We need to find out why they're not in class. If they're skipping one class because they're getting through the class, that's one thing. We need to address that. If they're missing a whole day, I think that's important. Now, to address my colleague's answer, I agree with her. They're allowed excused absences. These are unexcused. And if you read the report, it talks about Chelmsford 8 absences. It doesn't say 8 unexcused absences, where Lowell says 5 unexcused absences. So you have the 5 plus the 5, that's 10. So we're actually, if anything, I think we have a more generous policy than Chelmsford, the way it's set up right now. And the other thing that came out is we were first being told that these children didn't pass the class. Well, the U is they did pass the class. All these children somehow got through the class, and just under our policy, don't qualify for the time. They didn't meet the attendance requirement to get the credit for the grade. So there is a value for these students to go through. As through April 1st, and I do understand it was through April, only 25% of the people in the program have only made it through it. Now, that gives us May and June and 12 days or so in June. So where we were running out of time, I imagine this will get a little bit higher. But even if it's doubles it, we're only talking 50% of the students somehow are making it through. So my real question is, what is the issue here? Are these children just not motivated or not? I think we got to find that out, because if you have 352 somehow qualify to get in this, because if they had more than 15 absences, they don't even qualify. So there's probably more children we're not even counting here that may have made it through. So I think that's what we were talking about, like the 500 number. But only 352 qualify, and out of that, we're lucky if we get 50% to get through the program. So the problem is not really this, I think this is the problem. We have this program that's, it's kind of helping, but it's not looking at the real root of the problem. And I think that's what we talked about earlier. And I think this is where really the rubber hit the road in the meeting, where we kind of really said, we have to find out what is the problem. Is it the freshman children can't get there and there's a transportation? That might be a piece of it. I don't think that's the whole thing. I'd like to see them do some more data analysis to say, let's look at these numbers to see, are these kids missing the whole day or are they just skipping a class? You might say, hey, it's a beautiful sunny day in May, I'm going down to get a sandwich and maybe no one will catch me. And I'll be back for the next period or two later or something. So I don't know. We need more information. And that was part of the outcome of this meeting, to get more information as well as to look at our policy, just to look at it. We're not going to make any decisions at this point. We're going to continue to stay on top of this. But I'm telling you, I'm not going to adjust the number down. That's not going to happen. I think we need to have it as tight as possible to get, our goal is to have those children in class. And we need to find out why they're not there. So I think that's the next step we're looking to take this piece to, and we'll continue to monitor this. Thank you.
Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. Just very quickly, from listening to Mr. McHugh, one question we should be asking is if these students are passing and they're not in class, maybe we're not engaging them. So maybe we should look at their schedules through their guidance counselor. Are they taking classes that are too easy? Are we not following these students properly? Are we not challenging them? I mean, that's what I'm getting from this conversation. I don't hear great things about that buyback. Some people like it, some people don't. Mr. McHugh made some good comments, but I think the obvious thing is that maybe we're just not engaging them. If they're passing and they're not in class, then they obviously know it. Should they be in that class?
Just one thing. When I say passing, that doesn't mean they're all getting A's. I mean, they could be getting D's and getting through and just sliding through. So I think I think
we need to know what it is.
We need that information.
Right.
We need that information as part of that. I think there's a lot more data that we need to decide how this is working. Because if they're all getting just flat out D's, they're not, in my eyes, I don't consider that necessarily passing. They're just squeaking by. So that's only going to hurt them as they move on to the next class. But I think we need to continue to get all that information and continue to work through this problem.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes, there was a motion that came out of that discussion. I just want to add before I read the motion, I think that for the high school staff, they see the buyback program as a safety net, another way to try to keep kids. And maybe we need to look at a completely different way of doing it. The other point they made about the excused absences is that our policy requires either written notification of a court date or a doctor's note, and that many of our students don't actually go to the doctors that often if they just have a flu or something like that. Like, a parent's note is not acceptable for an excused absence, so that might be something we would want to look at. When we look at the U grade students, I think some of the data we've talked about that we'll need to get has to do with, you know, how many absences did they have? Were they absent the whole day or just that class? Was there another piece that we want to include in this motion that we didn't say that night? Okay, so just general stuff on that idea. The motion by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary, was to request the high school provide the subcommittee with a report of recommendations for changes to the attendance policy, the buyback program, and the issuance of U grades. So they're going to come back to us with a comprehensive report that would include the data we need about those U grade students.
All right. So moved by Mr. McHugh, second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Next item.
Okay, the last item on the agenda was the literacy budget implications update. And that was, if you all remember, we have the Read 180 program for the current freshmen, the 9th graders. The high schools presented a proposal to expand the Read 180 program, currently being used with our freshman students, to include sophomore students. So we have students who've made tremendous progress in this program, but they're still reading below grade level. So the idea is to continue that support in the 10th grade with those students, so that they can continue to show growth and jump grades and get closer to, you know, closing that gap between the achievement levels of the other students. This is an expensive proposal because of the cost of the supplies. We'd have to buy the software, the training, and
Thank you.
it will be included in the budget, but we're looking at a ballpark number of $221,000. And there was a motion by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary, to recommend to the committee as a whole to accept this report as a report of progress. We're not making any decisions about that investment at this time, but just to be aware that that's coming from the high school. There was also one other agenda item, I'm sorry. It's regarding the an internship program at the high school. Headmaster William Samaras gave an outline of a proposed housemaster internship program that they're developing. We could express some concern that night about if that might impact class size and the schedule of classes, and there was also the suggestion we might have an intern position be considered for the freshman academy. The idea is to take a teacher and relieve that teacher of some of their teaching load so that they can provide some administrative help with the housemasters. And it would be an apprenticeship program, kind of as a way to groom that teacher for potential leadership positions down the road, as a kind of an in-house training kind of program. And we are going to be getting more information on that from the high school. And there was a motion by Mr. Leary, seconded by Mr. McHugh, to request the high school provide additional information and present a final proposal to the subcommittee on this issue.
Okay, I'm sorry, the last motion to request additional information, present a final report.
To the
Okay.
subcommittees.
So moved by Mr. Leary, second by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. And finally, motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Okay, the next subcommittee report is a report of the Joint City Council School Subcommittee on School Building Programs. Mr. McHugh.
Yes, just briefly, yesterday there was a meeting held here prior to the city council meeting, and at that meeting we received a presentation regarding the final bids that came in for the Maury and the Sapasaris School. After sifting through all the sub-bid contractors, the Maury came in $409,000 over and above the original projected cost of $20,275,467. Actually, that's very good if you look at it from the math standpoint. The Sapasaris building came in at under by $93,000. It was really talked about $1 million, but they had to kind of go on based upon there were some withdrawals in the subs, which moved the numbers around a little bit, but it still came in basically at the bid price. We received a formal presentation from Mr. Moses, the city finance director, regarding the two various options, and if we were to build both schools right now, move forward, the cost was roughly around $44 million, and the city would be receiving in reimbursements from the state around $23 million at this time. That's a guarantee, and the interesting concept about that option is that if we move forward under the new regulations, the loans were going to be done two separate ways, because as the state is paying as you go now. As you build the projects, they actually reimburse you and not reimburse you at a later date. So that would the impact on the city debt service would be a lot less. And then the other option, because they compared to another option, was that if you went ahead with the Maury right now and then went back to the state to reapply for either the Sapasaris or a different school at a different site, what would that look from a financial standpoint? And actually that project, even though you'd only be building one school now, the way you would bond that project to pay for it, it would actually have a greater impact for the first 5 or 6 years on the debt service, and then after that it would kind of be less than the other project. So that would really put a strain on some of the city side debt at this point. So there was not a recommendation to move forward at this point. However, I think that at the next, we're going to have another meeting next Tuesday at 5:30 again to continue this discussion. I think on the benefit of the building both now, it would also, we know all the factors, we know what we're doing, as well as once it's done, I believe there's going to be the Varnum School is potentially going to be turned back over to the city, which is a huge benefit for them. And they could then use that to develop, sell it off, and as well as the central administration currently pays rent downtown, we could utilize one of the other buildings that would be closed down for, that we actually own for like a possible central administration office, which would save some other financial dollars for the city as well. So those are going to continue to be talked about, I think, at the next meeting. Those are all the intangible items that do play into this as well. If you look at the second one, option where you delay the possibility of building a new building at a later date, the process has changed with the state. In the years past, you would actually apply to the state with a project and you'd go on to the waiting list. Now, it might be 5, it might be 10 years, or there'd be some limit, or eventually you're on the list. The state has changed that. You have to apply in the first year, and they're only going to approve certain projects that meet certain criteria, and overcrowding is the number one criteria. The second criteria are buildings in deplorable shape, in essence, is the best way to describe it. We may not meet those. So it's not about our old way of, which pushed us to the top of the list. And then if you don't qualify in the first year, there's no list. You have to reapply again the second year. And they use the same criteria to evaluate all the proposals, and they will award whatever funds they can for, let's say, I imagine it's probably like the top 20 or so projects. And if you don't get approval that year, you go back in again. So once you get the approval, that just starts the process. And then once you start the process, you have to get the architectural designs. It's really, they've slowed the process down. In prior years, you would do all this legwork up front, go in with a project, and just basically waiting for approval so you could go out to bid. Now they're going to be a partner, they're going to be involved with you, as well as the percentage reimbursement is an unknown at this point. It could be as low as 55%, and maybe only as high as 75%. In past years, the city of Lowell has benefited through all the other projects of getting a 90% reimbursement. These projects were a 90% reimbursement. However, over the number of years here, we've delayed these projects, so the inflation cost of construction has grown above and beyond the original cost that the state approved. So they won't approve any more funds for it, but that's why it's like about a little over 55% reimbursement at this time. So that's a snapshot of what happened. There were a lot of questions, but the numbers are a good number. I think the benefit for this, through the process that we've gone through, we had 2 independent firms evaluating the numbers as we moved through the process. So they were constantly checking with each other as prior to the estimates. So I think that's why we're seeing these estimates come in pretty much right where they need to be. So I think that if anything comes out of this, I was very happy to see that part work, because there has been experience here in the city with other projects. We get an estimate and it comes in, $1 million over, $2 million over, and then they have to come back for further appropriation. So I think right now we're sitting in the driver's seat. We only have a short window now because we've kept delaying the approval of this, so we're going to have to make a decision, or the city will have to make a decision one way or the other on which way we should move on these projects. And the analysis quickly does look like, for the short term, that to build both would be the way to go at this point. I think there are a lot of intangible benefits to the city that we'll have to talk about the other buildings that would become available, some consolidation and savings on the school department budget, which in essence saves the city as well. So I think when you start to look at all those, the analysis starts to point in that direction, and keeping our debt service as low as possible, and for the next 4 or 5 years as other projects come online or go offline. So we haven't had a recommendation from the city manager. I think that'll come at the next meeting, and the city council then will take a vote at that point. So that's a report of progress. Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to add anything, you're more than welcome.
No, I don't think so. It's under, also under the report to the superintendent, so I can just say it's going to be a difficult decision. I'm not sure where the votes are going to line up on this. You know, certainly it's a lot cheaper to build one school, especially the way the school building assistance program is going to fund it. We can apply funds not used from one school to the other if we only build one. However, that, you know, is going to be more expensive in the long run because we know we need the other school. Whether now is the time to do it or not, I think is the decision that will be made probably on Tuesday. So that's all I would add.
Accept the report.
Okay, motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, the report is accepted. Under reports of the superintendent, Madam Superintendent.
I think there's one more under subcommittees.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the school committee delegation to Congressman Meehan's 5th District Day. So I'm going to report on that.
Sure, just
Mr.
very
Mr.
briefly,
Leahy.
because it was reported as a freebie in the paper, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we did work while we were at, Mr. Leary and I attended the 14th Annual Legislative Seminar by Congressman Meehan. It was very well run, as usual. During the day, we did get to hear from and speak with Senator Kennedy and Kerry. Part of the day, we went to a meeting set up by Congressman Meehan's office. At that meeting was myself, Mr. Leary, Mike Lindsay, and Brian Martin from the Greater Lowell Vocational School. We met with Patrick Rooney, management and program analysis for DOE, and Julia Davis, congressional liaison. Basically, we talked about No Child Left Behind. We talked about the problems that an urban district faces. Big part of the discussion was the shortfall of money, that the No Child Left Behind really hasn't been funded. We talked about AYP. We talked about segregating test scores for districts like Lowell, where some aspects may pull down the whole overall score for a school. We talked about Title I monies, which we've lost over a number of years, and the meeting was about 40 minutes. The gentleman from the Greater Lowell Vocational Tech had some questions concerning their schools, but basically, Mr. Leary and I spoke about the needs of Lowell, and Jim, if you'd like to add anything else?
Just briefly, we also discussed regarding transient populations, and we pointed out to them that Lowell being the 4th largest city in the state of Massachusetts, that we have a large transient population. We asked if there was any programs or any identifications or any acknowledgement that this may be happening in other urban schools, and is there any action plans, money, techniques, assistance, help, empathy, whatever, that would help out. And they looked at us with a blank stare like, oh yeah, we didn't really acknowledge that. But I think they understand now that we pointed out to them that our students, we pointed out test reports where if you're in the Lowell public school system for a long period of time, 5 years or greater, you're going to be successful in passing the state standardized test, MCAS, which they touted as one of the best tests in the nation, which it's one of the strongest. I wouldn't disagree with it. But when we pointed out to them that when we get a person within the test time frame, if they've only been there a year or less, or 2 years, they're not as successful. So they're not going through a lot of the critical plans that we have in place, our curriculum we have in place. And we asked them if they could start looking into something like that, not only for Lowell, but every other urban school or even regular school, to see if there's some assistance. And that was something I think they were surprised. They had come prepared to saying what a great job they were doing funding No Child Left Behind, and they were taken aback, not taken aback, they were kind of like, no comment. They were like wide open, what have you. But I also want to say that our two colleagues from the Greater Lowell, we actually made a pretty good team within this standpoint. They actually backed us up in a lot of the transfer issues, the transient issues as well. So it was, I thought, a very productive meeting. I went in there not thinking it would be as productive. It actually was productive, so I was glad to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, second by Ms. Fattacante. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Report is accepted. Under reports of the superintendent, Madam Superintendent, first item is the budget.
Yes, committee members received on their desks this evening a copy of my recommended budget for 2008. As you leaf through it, there's a section of the budget narrative, and then sections describing budget adjustments, the system-wide budget. And you'll note that the sections in the back, specifically around schools, the individual data, Assistant Superintendent Lang is still in the printing production business, and at 10 of 7, they weren't off the computer. So we'll have those to you before the weekend, before our budget, first budget deliberation, hearing and deliberation, which is Monday evening. So you'll have that budget detail, but what you have is the overview. You have the whole document so that you know where the dollars are and where all the adjustments are. What you just don't have is the school-by-school detail that is behind it. You do have the entire staff salary book included in this budget notebook. As I indicated, the committee's first budget hearing and first formal deliberations on the budget will be this coming Monday evening, but I thought it might be helpful to just frame a few of the issues in the budget. I first want to thank Assistant Superintendent Lang, who did an enormous amount of work over an intense period of several weeks to pull a lot of this information together. And as we deliberated with principals and central office administrators, he was very flexible and was able to make a variety of changes right up to late this afternoon, as we deliberated some of the tough choices that we were making. The City Council appropriated $131.9 million to the school department for fiscal year '07. The school department carried over $800,000 from FY '06 to create an approved budget of about $132.7 million. The House and Senate, fortunately this year, met and agreed last month on the Chapter 70 appropriation for every city and town. That translates to certainty for Lowell of $4.9 million increase for the Lowell Public Schools. So I've prepared this recommended FY '08 budget so that it lives within the limits set by the City Council's appropriation of last year, its FY '07 appropriation, plus the legislature's Chapter 70 increase. So the budget I'm recommending calls for $136,758,473, which represents a 3.1% increase over the school committee's approved budget of fiscal year '07. The first in building the budget, the first thing that we did was to meet all contractual obligations. So the budget includes all anticipated step and lane changes, and I think you'll appreciate in the middle of that page, you can get an idea of how often Mr. Lang and I were communicating. I managed to spell lane as Lang plus E. I think I slipped on the typewriter there because I was so used to typing L-A-N-G. But anyway, step and lane changes, anticipated wage and salary adjustments based on we know that collective bargaining is not complete, but making an estimate based on the school committee's current thinking around salary adjustments, and it also includes our obligations for sick leave buyback and longevity. The next step in building the budget was to take a close look at those items that are often the big budget busters, the ones that really represent some really dramatic increases from one year to the next. The biggest one, of course, for us, I think there's been a fair amount of reports in the newspaper about this, is our health insurance. The city met with its health insurance consultants today to finalize what percentage increase to build into the budget across both the city and school departments. And the city manager has secured agreement from that firm to make the increase be 15%, rather than what had been, we expected, the 17% increase. So for for our local budget, that means an increase of $1,980,602 is our estimated increase. Electricity, we're anticipating going up above current budget by 27%, or $690,000. Natural gas and oil up 18%, $340,000. So, but just utilities alone is going to be $1 million increase in our budget. Special education tuition, we're anticipating a 5% increase, another $250,000. So those four, what I call budget busters alone, account for $3.2 million increase, which eats up a big chunk of that Chapter 70 increase. Last year, when I brought the budget to you, you saw a number of trade-offs that went school by school. We looked at, for example, within the Bailey School, reducing one position, say the science specialist position, in order to fund a math specialist position. Or you saw at middle school reducing a physical education teacher in order to add a math teacher. We've taken that trade-off process a step further in these budget deliberations, where we've looked at the trade-offs from a K-12 perspective, not just within a school. So there have been some trade-offs within schools continued where administrators look and say, there's a service that we want to provide, a position that we have provided, but even more important now is a different position, and they've made those recommendations for trade-offs. We've done that at the district-wide basis, so that we've looked hard at trade-offs that would enable us to shift resources from one area to another to a higher priority or a more critical need. It doesn't mean that we don't need those other resources, but it means that we need other services more. So that examples, for example, at Lowell High School, there's a French teaching position. As we've looked at the French enrollment, the enrollments in French classes, and the options there for youngsters within foreign language, we've determined not to, that's where the teacher is retiring from that. We're expecting not to fill that position, and instead move the resources to where we need them more, in that case, to the Junior Air Force ROTC program, where we've got burgeoning enrollment. It's a highly successful program, one that we need to get as many youngsters into that program as we can possibly do. So that's an example of a trade-off within a school. In the case of another trade-off is we have a second clerical position in my office, in the superintendent's office, that we had hoped to fill. We held off filling that, and it's now a recommendation in this budget to permanently transfer that position out of my office and move it to a clerical position shared between the Malloy Alternative High School and the LeBlanc Therapeutic Day Program. Neither of those schools has clerical support. We've talked about that in several of the subcommittee meetings about the need to provide some additional resources there. So you'll see it here in the budget, that kind of trade-off and transfer. Again, it's not that my secretary doesn't need more assistance to pour out everything that we need out of my office, but the alternative schools need it more. And so that's the kind of trade-off that you'll see here. There are more than 25 different trade-offs of positions from one part of the budget to another. A number of the positions that we're eliminating are at the middle school level. There'll be a modest increase in class size at the middle school because of those, reducing those positions.
Okay.
And we're shifting those positions primarily to three areas that are critical needs for us. One area is English language learners. We're not meeting we're not fully in compliance with regulations about English language development for our newcomers. So we need to provide staffing at 5 of our schools where we have the most newcomer students and the least ability to meet the needs. A second area is students with special needs. We've been very aggressive. The school committee has been very supportive of the aggressive steps we've taken since fiscal year '02 to develop alternatives to out-of-district placements. I think we're one of the only districts, I think, in the Commonwealth that can say that in fiscal year '07, we were spending less money out of our local budget on special ed tuition than we had been spending in fiscal year '02. But needs continue to escalate. So in the case of particularly of the national epidemic in autism and pervasive developmental delay, we already have identified more preschool youngsters than we can serve in our existing 3 preschool PDD classes, so we've got to add a 4th. And the same thing with elementary classrooms. We need to add a 5th sub-separate special education program, a classroom for youngsters with pervasive developmental delay. Similarly, our special education programs for youngsters with emotional disabilities and behavior disorder at the middle school level are now have reached capacity and are exceeding it. we can strengthen the program at the Laura Lee, the alternative program at the Laura Lee, by adding a position there, taking it again from middle schools, moving it to the Laura Lee, so that we can meet the needs and also lighten some of the enrollments which are burgeoning in those classrooms at the separate middle schools. So it's another example of trying to move resources to where we most need them. And then the third area, it's been an area of great concern to many of the school committee members, is the area of alternative school programming. So that you will see, again, trade-offs here from of regular classroom teaching positions into resources to support our alternative school programs at the Malloy, the Cardinal, O'Connell, the McHugh alternative program at the Cardinal, and you'll see several trade-offs there designed to enable us to expand and improve the alternative settings for youngsters who are simply not being successful in traditional settings and whose continued presence in those traditional settings may be disruptive to the learning of their peers. We've again done trying to do a lot of efficiencies in this budget, so that, and I know that the Finance and Facilities Committee knows this. We're making plans to eliminate the 12 modular classrooms that are at the middle school level. By making that one-time investment in removing the modulars, we'll be able to save about $108,000 a year from here on out. You know that our transportation coordinator, John Dakota, was able to do some very innovative bidding for transportation, and we've been able to hold that's a $5 million cost in our budget. About half of it is for regular transportation, the other half for special transportation, and there's been growing demand in the special transportation area with homeless youngsters in group homes. Through Mr. Dakota's bidding process, we've been able to hold those increases to only 2.9%, which is, again, given the cost of gasoline and utilities, that's really a major accomplishment. I want to also just point to, besides to hold down the tuition, special ed tuition budget increases, we want to shift the teacher out of one area of the high school into life skills class at Lowell High School, where, again, if we can meet the needs of more diverse learners there, we can keep them at Lowell High School, not spending for tuition and transportation out of the district. One of the areas that committee members have also talked about is the whole area of capital improvement and equipment replacement. We've essentially froze those budgets in fiscal year '02 at a ridiculously small amount of money. We've just been able to deal with the most critical issues. This budget has a modest increase in that area so that we can tackle some of the most serious needs. For example, the security needs that were talked about at the Lowell High School subcommittee meeting this week can be addressed, and we can also just make a beginning start in the 5-year capital and maintenance plan that the facilities subcommittee has been working on. There are a couple of other areas that the budget will enable us to address within the appropriation that was in there last year for this current year for textbooks and expenses. We will be able to continue to replace the consumable materials that are required for our K-8 math program. We'll be able to provide the additional geometry textbooks that are needed now that the school committee has accepted our recommendation to up the graduation requirements in mathematics. We've got more students taking geometry. We've got to make sure that they have the right tools for that. And also in the budget is the expansion of the grade 9 remedial program, reading program into grade 10. As well as from an earlier subcommittee meeting from, I think it was actually the fall, about our really excellent and growing instrumental music program that really we had underfunded, and the committee asked that I make sure in this budget process that we make sure that there's adequate funding in there for the the replacement and repair of instruments, as well as adequate funding for the stipends and entrance fees and so on for the key music festivals. On the last page of the overview, I've listed a lot of items that are not in the budget. I wish they were in the budget. I know a number of them represent, for school committee members, really important priorities. that I know you had hoped would be in the budget. I had hoped that they would be in the budget, but given the constraints and trying to operate within the trade-off principle of trying to have no new net costs for programs, we were unable to expand, for example, preschool transportation, or expand access to alternative programs beyond what I've outlined, or provide the boost to the science programs, K-12, that we know we need to do for our students, or the expand the clerical support at our middle schools, where so that families and students can have better access to student support services, or a whole range of things from that last page of that overview. They're left on the cutting room floor, not able to be entertained in such a tight budget. That said, this is a budget that I believe will enable the staff to continue their hard work in the pursuit of excellence in learning for all of our students. I know that all of us look forward to the deliberations that will begin Monday evening, and I welcome contact from committee members between now and then if there are particular areas that you would like more information in than you have in the overview or in the budget document itself. We want to be as responsive to you as possible as we go through the deliberations.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Yes, Sean, I just have one quick question for you to the superintendent. Under other critical needs, number 4 says summer school. Does that mean no summer school, or is
No,
that
that's looking ahead to fiscal year '08.
you're thinking that next summer we won't have any summer school?
Unless there are Title I dollars. Unless there are Title I dollars, we just were able to squeak through for this year with Title I dollars for the fiscal year '07 summer school. I don't believe there's money in the budget, in the local budget, to restore local funding for summer school.
Okay. Any other comments, questions or comments on this preliminary look at the budget? Motion to approve the budget by Ms. Martin?
Yes.
No. Ms.
Just
Martin?
one quick question.
Yeah.
Just as I'm looking, and obviously we just received this tonight, so as I'm looking at some of the trade-offs, specifically in the middle school, I'm struck by a few of them, and I just want to ensure that your process included working with principals in terms of setting their priorities, working with, ensuring that there was a lot of communication happening with teachers, with faculty, that these trade-offs were things that they certainly aren't, we don't expect anyone to be excited about it, but that they're rational and they have logic behind them in terms of the priorities that we're setting.
Yes, we've had thoughtful discussions with the 4 middle school principals where we made those reductions, and they were they were challenging choices, challenging decisions by principals. One of the things that we tried very hard to do, and I think we've accomplished it, is that despite those reductions, in order to trade off to put resources where we needed them even more, we do not expect that any teacher or paraprofessional who is permanently employed and certified and qualified for the position they're in will lose employment in the Lowell Public Schools. So I do want to assure you that that was a factor that we paid close attention to.
Great. Just so you can anticipate some questions that I'm sure will arise as we discuss this. Again, looking, and it's just what's jumped out at me in this immediate moment, eliminations just off the top here at the daily of art teacher, music teacher, phys ed teacher. I didn't even get that down. I didn't get that deep into it. These are basically your specials. All of those programs. I'm not expecting you to answer me right now, but what I will be looking for as we get into the hearing process is some pretty significant backup for those choices. Those are things that are, valued, have great academic value that
Absolutely.
I would take some convincing to support.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. McHugh?
Madam, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the superintendent, maybe it's possible, just I know some of this is due to the elimination of the portables and enrollment, so maybe the enrollment report that you gave out previously might want to be an item that you bring to the budget session, because I think that would help also show where the students are and how we're utilizing the staff. Thank you.
Okay, anything further? Motion to accept the report of Mr. Leahy, did you?
I thought we were going to approve this, no? Was that your
Apparently not.
motion?
Apparently not.
Oh, okay.
So, motion to accept the communication by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed will accept the delivery of the budget, and we will resume discussion Monday evening at 7 p.m. Next item, school building program, Madam Superintendent.
I have nothing to add to Mr. McHugh's complete report.
Okay. All right, then we'll go to the next item, Lowell High School graduation plans.
Yes, as committee members know, the Tsongas Arena was not going to be available for the Lowell High School commencement on June 6th. We now know, because of changes in plans for how to handle the repair there, that the Tsongas Center is going to be available. So, as originally planned, Lowell High School commencement will take place at the Tsongas Arena at 6 p.m. on June 6th.
6 p.m., June 5th.
Okay. Motion to accept the report by Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted.
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah, Mr. Leahy.
I believe the superintendent, but this happened awfully fast, huh? I thought the city council just talked.
I was a little surprised to see this myself.
Oh, all right. After reading the paper, I wasn't sure, and then I got the memo, so. All right, but we know what's going on, right? We're definitely having it there.
Sometimes?
Well,
No, I think it's just the timing. I don't think.
I think the contract that was bid cannot be let, or it can't be awarded yet because it's over the funding that was approved. Whether that work is going to proceed this summer or not, that decision has not been made.
Oh, all right.
And that will likely be made Tuesday evening. But I didn't know that. I thought if it were to proceed, it may have proceeded before this. But
I will be happy to double check with the headmaster that he's gotten the most accurate information. It was my understanding through him that no decision had been made on what to do, but that the timing now needed to be after June 6th.
Okay. We should
that
probably.
may be true. I just don't know that to be true.
We should probably thank the headmaster, too, for all his sleepless nights, and now we're going to have it at the arena, so.
Well, I'll call him after this
Thank
meeting, and he may not have us. He might have another sleepless
Well,
night.
hopefully not. Thank you.
All right. Motion to accept the report by Mr. Leahy, second by Ms. Faticante. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next item, Madam Superintendent, oral health project.
Yes, after 3 years of planning that was started with Jean Franco in the Student Services Department and has been completed with Assistant Superintendent Murphy, the Oral Health Impact Project is ready to go with its pilot program. So we anticipate that now this is a novel approach designed to help overcome the barriers to dental care, and so that we'll be having a portable clinic that will be able to go to different schools, establish relationships with kids and families, and we'll be piloting this shortly at the Moody, Lincoln, Varnum, Greenalge, Morey, McAuliffe, and Merkland schools. And if we have the success that we think there will be, we hope to be able to then expand it to more schools after this first pilot run. So we'll report back to the committee when we have some direct experience with it, but we're all very excited about it.
Okay. Motion to accept the report by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. McHugh. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Next item on legislative hearings.
Yes, you have some information in your packet describing bills that have been heard on May 1st and will be heard on May 8th by the Joint Committee on Education, the Joint Senate-House Committee. You have one description about a bill that's been filed by Senator Augustus to improve dropout prevention and recovery that might have particular relevance for the Lowell Public Schools. And I know Committee Member Doherty went to one of the hearings, and I've been asked to represent Lowell and the urban superintendents at the May 8th hearing. So wanted to welcome any comments or questions or reports from committee members.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to say, in light of the importance of this dropout prevention legislation to support our own efforts around improving attendance and reducing dropout rates at the high school, I move that we direct the superintendent to write a letter from the Lowell School Committee supporting this bill, and that it be sent as written testimony at the hearing on this legislation next week.
What was the end of that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
That be
To be
submitted
sent
as
as written testimony at the hearing on this
Written.
legislation next week.
Second by Mr. Leary. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. And a motion to accept the report by Mr. McHugh, second by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. Citizen contact.
Yes, you have a report prepared in response to a motion by Committee Member Leary to add the global email function for the committee on the Lowell Public School website. I think the report is, we just welcome committee direction on this.
Ms. Fataconti.
I like this. I like it very much, except for the "I would like to remain anonymous" button. I think that if you are contacting a city official, then you should give us the respect that we're giving you by having our name printed and published. I think that I don't think you should be able to remain anonymous, because this opens up a can of worms for rumors, innuendos, hideous comments and statements that can't be okay? Yeah, most of them probably about me, but anyway, so I'd like to know who those people are, so I can call them and email them back. So I think that if you're going to contact a city official, and I've always felt this way, Your Honor, when I open up a piece of correspondence at home, if it's not signed, then I cannot give that piece of paper the same respect that I would like given to me. My name's in the phone book. People know how to contact me. My name's going to be on this website, and I have no problem with it. I think it's wonderful. But I think that people should be able to contact us, and they should have the decency and the respect to put their name in there. Otherwise, this is great.
So is that a motion to amend the...
Motion to amend and take out that little radial
form
button that
to-
says, "I would like to remain anonymous."
Okay. All right. So moved by Ms. Fataconte. So that's a motion to approve this.
Motion to approve, just
As
removing
amended.
that, right.
Okay.
Please, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So this form as amended is approved.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice job, Mr. Leary.
List of eligible teachers.
Yes, the committee has a copy of the list of eligible teachers, the current list.
Move approval, Your Honor.
Motion approved by Ms. Fataconte, second by Mr. Leahy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is approved. Personnel report.
Yes, you have a copy of the May 2nd personnel report. I just do want to note under retirements, the retirement of longtime assistant principal at the Morey School, Joanne Kelleher. So I wanted to thank her publicly for her good work and loyalty to the Lowell Public Schools.
Your Honor, accept the personnel report and letters to be sent, please.
So moved by Ms. Fataconte, second by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is accepted. And one request for home education.
Recommend approval.
Motion to approve by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Doherty. Roll call, please.
And, Your Honor, I think we were looking for a report on home education, too. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
MCAS, right? On the MCAS, if they had to take
On
the MCAS.
home education.
Right.
And the MCAS, you're right. Thank
Okay,
you.
roll call to, on this request for approval.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes?
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Fataconte.
Yes?
7 yeas approved.
Okay, under new business, there are several items, the first being the appointment of the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, as committee members know, Ann Murphy has been serving as, since the summer as interim Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. We posted the position officially this spring, accepted applications, and it is my enormous pleasure to recommend that the interim be removed from the title for Ann Murphy so that she becomes Assistant Superintendent for Student Services with a 3-year contract. I think committee members, I'm confident, would agree that Ann has more than shown her commitment, her competence, her responsiveness in the time that she has served in this role. She's almost her entire career has been spent in the Lowell Public Schools. She's exceedingly knowledgeable about special education, having served at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels in a variety of positions, from direct service with youngsters to administration, with particular emphasis on the middle school level. But she's also worked with out-of-district placements and worked. And this year has demonstrated that she's a quick learner about areas ranging from English as a second language for our English language learners to student safety to crisis management. She's calm, organized, well-spoken, and responsive, and I'm just delighted to bring forward the recommendation to appoint Ann to a 3-year term as Assistant Superintendent for Student Services.
Move approval, Your Honor.
Motion approved by Ms. Fattacanti, second by Mr. Leary. Roll call, please.
And also to thank the Assistant Superintendent for taking the position full-time, or actually taking the acting after she has been actually doing the job for a whole year. She still has the courage to take the position for a 3-year contract. That's a lot to be said.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Leahy,
Absolutely.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Fattacanti.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
7 yeas approved. Congratulations.
Absolutely, using over the agenda.
Thank you. This is a tremendous, tremendous honor for me. As all of you know, I'm a product of the Lowell Public Schools. I'm a proud product of the Lowell Public Schools. And I'm also a proud parent of a student who came all the way up through the public schools and graduated from Lowell High School in 2005. I know the commitment and the dedication that all of the staff have in this system. We have a wonderful, wonderful system. From all of you here as policymakers, central office staff, the clerical staff, the custodial staff, the building-based staff, everyone is really, really committed to providing the very best educational opportunities for our students. I couldn't be prouder of this system. When I started my career a few years back, I was teaching multiply handicapped special education students in the private sector. And at that time, special education was really in its infancy. And I don't know if many of you remember him, but retired Deputy Superintendent Doug Sullivan at the time said to me, you really need to work in the public schools, that you can make a difference in the lives of children with special needs in the public schools. And it was the absolute best piece of advice that I have ever taken. So 28 years later, I sit before you, not stand, I sit before you humbled by the confidence that you've placed in me, and I welcome the challenges ahead, and I really look forward to working with all of you as we continue to move this system forward. My colleagues here have been terrific this year. What an adventure this first year has been. There have been so many experiences and just curveballs that have been thrown, and they have been very patient with my learning. They have guided me along, and I want to thank you all for that. So I thank you for your confidence, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Murphy. I think the school choice vote has been delayed until Monday's meeting, and so the last item is acceptance of the Pawtucket Memorial and Pine Arts Schools. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, based on a conversation today with Chief Financial Officer Tom Moses, we can just do the Pawtucketville tonight, and we'll get the information for the Pine at a future time, but the one that he most has to have is the Pawtucketville. So this is asking the committee to vote the following language: whereas the City of Lowell School Department has undertaken a construction project of the Pawtucketville Memorial Elementary School comprising approximately 71,000 square feet at a cost of approximately $11,500,000, and whereas the building inspector for the City of Lowell has judged the facility substantially complete and safe for occupancy, the committee hereby accepts the facility for use as an educational facility in accordance with the regulations of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Education.
So moved by Ms. Faticante, second by Mr. Leary. Mr. Leary.
Thank you. Through you to Superintendent.
Should be a call money.
This just means that we accept it, but are there any, do we have any, is the feeding system working properly? Do we have anything to say about that, or is it
We've
just
actually made a number of improvements. Mr. Curley was able to get at some of those issues this past summer and fall, so we've addressed a number of the issues at that school. This, however, is this is something we should have done earlier, and I didn't know to bring this to the committee at the time. So we're doing this now as a formality, so that all the paperwork can be in order for the audits of the school building project.
Does it have anything to do with, like, the city's liability if something's not working over there? We probably don't have any
I don't believe
thing to say anyways. Okay.
I think I could shed some light. The part of the process is when you complete one of these projects, you're supposed to submit the receipts and expenditures to the School Building Assistance Bureau. There's an audit process that takes place, and ultimately the state approves our submission for reimbursement. I think in the audit process it was, and we haven't completed, even though these schools have been built for some time, the audit process has not been completed on a number of them. So with we're trying to take them one at a time, and so this issue surfaced in that audit process as a missing piece of documentation that needs to be provided.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, roll call on the motion.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes?
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, I believe that concludes the agenda. Motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Fattacante. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting stands adjourned.